The sound of a $200 bottle of Dom Perignon shattering on the tiled floor didn't scare me as much as the manic look in my sister Cassie's eyes. She screamed that my black wheelchair looked like an ugly lump of coal, ruining her perfect engagement photo. Then she shoved me straight into the glass tower of champagne, blood mixed with sparkling wine. I couldn't move my legs to stand up, but Cassie had made a fatal mistake. She didn't know that the elegant woman who had just crossed the lawn and rushed over to stabilize my neck with the professional motion of a top expert was Dr. Helena Kingsley, the groom's aunt. She was also the very person who had drilled 8 screws into my spine 24 months ago. And this time, Dr. Kingsley wasn't using a scalpel, she was using the law. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how a biological sister could be so cruel, I must take you back to an hour prior, when the wrought iron gates of Magnolia Springs Botanical Garden first swung open. They revealed what could only be described as a pastel fever dream. Pink roses, mint green hydrangeas, and cream-colored lilies spilled from every available surface. Gossamer ribbons twisted around white columns. A string quartet played something baroque and expensive-sounding near a marble fountain. This was Cassie's vision of perfection, and I was about to become the single black mark on her pristine canvas. The mandatory dress code was spring pastel, baby pink, or mint green. The invitation had specified in looping calligraphy, no exceptions. I had complied by wearing a pale pink silk dress that I'd found on sale at Nordstrom Rack, the kind of dress that made me feel almost pretty despite everything. The fabric draped nicely over my atrophied legs, and I'd even done my hair in soft waves that fell past my shoulders. But my ultralight carbon wheelchair was matte black, a specialized piece of equipment worth $5,000 that I had saved forever to buy. Every penny from my disability payments, every birthday check from distant relatives, every dollar I could scrape together from freelance editing work had gone into this chair. It weighed only 18 pounds, and moved like a dream compared to the clunky, hospital-issued one I'd used for the first 6 months after the accident. This chair was my freedom, my independence, my ability to navigate the world without asking for help every 5 minutes. I didn't think Cassie would care about the color. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. I rolled myself up the accessible ramp, thank God the venue actually had one, and scanned the crowd for my sister. She stood near the champagne fountain, a vision in ivory lace that probably cost more than my entire year's worth of medical supplies. Her blonde hair was swept into an elaborate updo, and her makeup was magazine perfect. She was laughing at something Greg, her fiancé, had said, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Greg was a good guy, as far as I could tell from the 3 times I'd met him. He was an architect, soft-spoken and kind, with an easy smile that seemed genuine. I'd wondered more than once what he saw in Cassie. But then again, Cassie had always been good at showing people only what she wanted them to see. I approached with total sincerity, wheeling myself through clusters of guests who politely stepped aside. My heart hammered in my chest. Despite everything, despite the 2 years of cold silence, despite the way she'd rewritten history to make herself the victim I still hoped, I still believed that somewhere inside my sister was the girl who used to braid my hair before dance recitals, who used to sneak me cookies when Mom put me on those horrible pre-performance diets. Cassie, I called out, my voice bright with forced cheer. She turned, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Annoyance? Disgust? It was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Matilda, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. You made it. The way she said it, you made it, as if she'd expected me to fail, or perhaps hoped I would. I swallowed the hurt and held out a small gift box, wrapped in vintage rose-patterned paper. Inside was a pair of vintage pearl earrings that I'd found after weeks of searching through antique sites and estate sales. Cassie had said, years ago when we were still close, when the Jeep hadn't yet crashed into the tree, when I could still stand on my toes and execute 32 perfect fouettes, that she loved vintage pearls. They reminded her of Grandma's jewelry, she'd said. The pearls Grandma wore in her wedding photos, the ones that had been lost when she passed. To buy these earrings, I had to withdraw money from my emergency medication savings fund, the account I kept for when insurance inevitably denied coverage for something essential. But I'd wanted to give Cassie something meaningful, something that said, I still love you, even though you've made it clear you don't love me back. I naively waited for a smile, or at least a nod of acknowledgement. Cassie took the box with 2 fingers, as if it might contaminate her. She opened it without ceremony, glanced at the pearls nestled in tissue paper, and her lip curled. Second hand? She said it like a diagnosis. It looks old. This doesn't match my Vera Wang dress at all. She carelessly dropped the gift box onto a nearby cocktail table, barely looking at it, before her attention shifted back to her phone. Her thumb scrolled, probably checking how many likes her engagement announcement had gotten on Instagram. My heart tightened, a physical sensation like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. But I swallowed my tears for the sake of the family peace. My parents always forced me to maintain. Don't rock the boat, Matilda. Your sister is going through a stressful time. Be the bigger person, Matilda. She didn't mean it that way. Except she did. She always did. It was then that Cassie's gaze dropped to my wheelchair, and her entire demeanor shifted from dismissive to outright hostile. What is that? She hissed, stepping closer. My wheelchair, I said slowly, confused by the venom in her tone. Cassie, you know That pitch-black chair looks like the Grim Reaper in the Garden of Eden, she whispered, leaning down so only I could hear. Her breath smelled like champagne in spite. You did this on purpose, didn't you? You couldn't just let me have one perfect day. Cassie, I didn't. This is my chair. I need it to. But she was already walking away, her heels clicking sharply against the stone pathway. I watched as she made a beeline for a nearby service station, where extra linens and supplies were stacked on a folding table. She snatched a spare tablecloth white, of course, pristine, and snapped it open with a sound like a whip crack. She marched back to me, the tablecloth billowing behind her like a cape. Cover this pile of junk up right now, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Before I could respond, she tried to drape the tablecloth over my legs, over the chair, as if I were a piece of furniture that didn't fit her aesthetic. As if I were something shameful that needed to be hidden away. For the first time in 2 years, 2 years of accepting blame for an accident I didn't cause, 2 years of enduring her cold shoulder and her pointed comments and her revised version of history, I fought back. I grabbed the tablecloth and pushed it away. No. Such a small word. Such enormous consequences. Cassie's face went red, blotchy patches appearing on her neck and cheeks. She yanked the tablecloth back and stormed away, but not before I heard her mutter, "Ungrateful bitch." For the next hour, I watched from the periphery, as Cassie worked the crowd, her charm turned up to maximum wattage. I watched her whisper to guests, watched them glance in my direction with expressions ranging from pity to suspicion. I knew what she was doing, I'd seen her do it before. She was controlling the narrative, getting ahead of whatever story might emerge from our interaction. Later, I would learn exactly what she'd been telling people, that I had Munchausen syndrome, that I just loved sitting in that wheelchair for pity, but I was actually fine. That the accident from 2 years ago, the accident she caused while driving the Jeep and texting her ex-boyfriend before hitting a tree, wasn't nearly as bad as I made it out to be. That I was dramatic, attention-seeking, jealous of her happiness. She was using my tragedy to paint me as a liar in everyone's eyes. And the worst part? Some of them believed her. The engagement party continued around me like I was a rock in a stream, guests flowing past, occasionally glancing over, mostly pretending I wasn't there. I parked myself near the rose garden, away from the main festivities, and watched my sister float from group to group like some kind of pastel butterfly. Greg caught my eye once and started to come over, but Cassie intercepted him smoothly, threading her arm through his and redirecting him toward an elderly couple near the fountain. I wondered if he knew. If she'd told him the real story about the accident, or if he'd gotten the sanitized version, the one where I was the reckless one, the drunk one, the one who'd ruined everything. About an hour after the party started, a photographer appeared, some hipster guy with a man bun and expensive equipment. He started setting up near the main stage area, a raised platform decorated with what must have been $1,000 worth of peonies. "Family photos," Cassie announced, her voice cutting through the string quartet. "Everyone gather round." I stayed where I was. Maybe if I remained still enough, small enough, she'd forget about me. No such luck. Cassie's eyes found me across the lawn. She gestured impatiently, her smile fixed and frozen. I wheeled myself over slowly, dreading whatever fresh humiliation awaited. The rest of the family was already assembling, mom and dad looking uncomfortable in their dressy clothes, Greg's parents looking wealthy and vaguely confused, various aunts and uncles and cousins filling in the gaps. And there, at the far left of the formation, sat a large, pink-ribboned banquet chair, the kind with a straight back and armrests, the kind that requires core strength and balance to sit in safely. The kind I absolutely could not use. "Matilda," Cassie said sweetly, her public voice dripping with artificial warmth. "Move the wheelchair somewhere else. Sit on that chair. I want this photo to be uniform." Everyone was watching. The photographer had his camera up, ready to shoot. Mom was making her "please don't cause a scene" face. Dad was staring at his shoes. "Cassie," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You know I have a T10 spinal injury. I don't have the core balance to sit on a regular chair. I'll fall." I'd explained this before, countless times over the past 2 years. A T10 complete spinal injury means I have no sensation or movement from approximately my belly button down. No abdominal muscles to hold myself upright. No ability to catch myself if I start to tip. Sitting in a regular chair without support was like asking someone to balance on a tightrope with no pole theoretically possible for about 5 seconds before physics and gravity won. Cassie's smile didn't falter, but something dark and ugly flashed in her eyes. "You're just good at ruining things," she said, her voice still sugary for the benefit of the crowd, but with an edge sharp enough to draw blood. Then, leaning closer, she whispered, "You're jealous because I'm getting married and you're a cripple, right?" The word hit me like a slap, not because I hadn't heard it before. I'd heard it from strangers, from kids, from drunk assholes at bars, but never from my own sister. Never from someone who was supposed to love me. "Stand up, you fake," she hissed, and then she grabbed me. The action happened so fast it completely surprised me. Cassie used both hands to grip me under my left armpit and yanked upward with a strength I didn't know she possessed. The jerk was violent, unexpected, pulling me up and forward at an angle that immediately threw off what little balance I had. My hands scrambled for the armrests of my chair but found only air. The world tilted sickeningly. In her fury and her haste, Cassie stepped on the hem of her own long dress. I saw her stumble, saw her arms windmill as she fought to keep her own balance. Her grip on me loosened and then released entirely as she dodged backward, trying not to fall. She caught herself, took a step back, regained her balance with the grace of someone who still had full control of their body. I wasn't so lucky. My lower body was immobile, dead weight that I couldn't control or compensate for. The momentum from her pull launched me forward. I had no leg muscles to brace with, no core strength to right myself. I was falling, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The champagne tower was directly in front of me. An elaborate pyramid of crystal glasses, each one filled with golden bubbling liquid, stacked 7 levels high. Probably cost more than my monthly rent. Definitely cost more than I was worth in Cassie's eyes. I hit it with my shoulder and chest, and the entire structure came down. The sound was incredible, a cascading crash of breaking glass, like wind chimes made of violence. Hundreds of shards exploded outward. I felt them slice into my hands as I tried to break my fall. Felt them cut my face, my neck, my arms. Sharp pain bloomed across my skin in a dozen places. My head snapped to the side, hitting the tile floor hard enough to make my vision blur. The expensive bottle from the top of the pyramid, that $200 Dom Perignon that someone had placed there like a crown, fell onto my shoulder with a heavy thud before rolling away. Blood began to spread across the white tiles, mixing with champagne into a grotesque rosé. My pink dress was soaked through, and I couldn't tell anymore what was wine and what was blood. My hands looked like they'd been through a paper shredder, glass embedded in my palms and fingers. The entire garden went dead silent. No music, no chatter. Just the sound of champagne still dripping from the edge of the platform, and my own ragged breathing. I lay there, unable to move, afraid to move. My neck hurt. My head was ringing. And somewhere above me, I heard Cassie's voice, high and hysterical. "Oh my God! My $5,000 dress. You ruined my party." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Someone help her. Stand up right now." I couldn't see her. My angle on the floor gave me a view of mostly chair legs and horrified faces, but I could hear her perfectly. Could hear the absolute lack of concern, the narcissistic focus on herself, on her party, on her dress. Someone gasped. Several people started to move forward, to help, but a voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Stand still, don't anyone touch her." The voice was female, authoritative, The kind of voice you obeyed without question. Through my blurred vision, I saw a woman drop her Gucci handbag onto the grass and push past a waiter. She moved with purpose, with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what to do in an emergency. She knelt beside me in the puddle of wine and blood, not caring about her elegant cream-colored pantsuit. Her hands were gentle but firm as she placed them on either side of my head, stabilizing my neck in the standard medical C-spine technique. "Listen to me carefully," she said, her voice calm and professional. "Don't try to move. Don't turn your head. I'm going to hold you steady until the paramedics arrive." I knew that voice. Dr. Helena Kingsley, Greg's aunt, the chief of neurosurgery at Mount Sinai Hospital, the woman who had saved my life 24 months ago. Dr. Kingsley looked up, her sharp gaze finding Greg in the crowd. "Call 911 immediately. Report a spinal injury and assault. Request police and an ambulance. Right now." "Assault?" Cassie's voice went shrill. "What are you talking about? She fell. It was an accident." But Dr. Kingsley wasn't looking at Cassie. She was looking at me, and something in her expression, a mix of recognition and fury, told me she knew exactly who I was. She'd known the moment she saw me fall. "Matilda Wells," she said softly, "just for me. I know you. I'm going to take care of you. You're safe now." And despite the pain, despite the blood, despite everything, I felt something inside me finally break free. I wasn't alone anymore. The minutes that followed existed in a strange, disconnected bubble. Time moved differently when you were lying on the ground, held immobile by the steady hands of someone who knew exactly how fragile your spine was. I could hear everything, every whispered conversation, every shocked gasp, every click of a camera phone, but I couldn't react, couldn't turn my head, could only stare up at the perfect blue sky and the lacework of tree branches above me while Dr. Kingsley maintained her grip. "You're doing great, Matilda," she said quietly. "Keep breathing. Slow and steady. That's it." Somewhere to my right, Cassie was spiraling. "Aunt Helena, you're overreacting." Her voice had that particular quality of panic that came when a narcissist realized they were losing control of the narrative. "She's faking it. She can walk. She's just acting to ruin my day." Dr. Kingsley's hands didn't move from my head, but her voice could have frozen nitrogen. "Miss Wells," she said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I am the one who personally drilled 8 pedicle screws into your sister's T10 and T11 vertebrae 24 months ago at Mount Sinai Hospital. I know the structure of her shattered bones better than she does herself." A collective intake of breath from the crowd. I couldn't see their faces, but I could imagine them, the slow realization, the pieces clicking into place. "Do you want to debate medical knowledge with the chief of neurosurgery, Dr. Kingsley continued, her tone making it clear this was not actually a question. Silence from Cassie. Blessed, beautiful silence. The confirmation from a top medical expert carried more weight than any of Cassie's lies ever could. All of her whispered rumors throughout the party about Munchausen syndrome, about faking, about seeking attention collapsed like the champagne tower, shattered just as completely. From my position on the ground, I could see some of the guests more clearly now. An elderly woman I didn't recognize had her hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. A younger couple stood frozen, the man with his arm protectively around the woman, and there, at the edge of my vision, was Greg. His face had gone completely white, his expression shell-shocked. Cassie stood frozen, her perfect updo starting to come undone, her $5,000 dress stained with champagne and, I noted, with a dark satisfaction, a few drops of my blood. Around us, whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. "Did you see what she did? She pulled her right out of the wheelchair. That poor girl. Will she be okay? Someone said the sister was texting during the car accident too. Is it true? Did she really cause it?" As for me, lying there amidst the pain and chaos, glass still embedded in my skin, blood drying sticky on my face, I thought, I'm still alive. How could it get any worse? It was almost funny, in a dark way. Surviving a horrific Jeep crash that had killed my ballet dreams and my future, that had left me with 8 screws holding my spine together and no feeling below my waist, had given me a certain calmness. An absolute experience in sensing survival. I'd already faced the worst thing I could imagine. Everything after that was just details. But this public revelation, this exposure of Cassie's true nature, this was something new. something that felt almost like justice. The sound of sirens cut through the garden, growing louder. Within minutes, paramedics were surrounding me, their movements efficient and practiced. They worked in tandem with Dr. Kingsley, who gave them a rapid-fire assessment of my condition and medical history. T10 complete, hardware in place, recent trauma to the head and cervical spine, she rattled off. Multiple lacerations, possible concussion. I want her in a collar and on a backboard, and someone call ahead to County General, tell them Helena Kingsley is accompanying the patient, and I want imaging immediately. The paramedics didn't question her. When a neurosurgeon gave orders, you followed them. They applied a rigid neck brace, carefully rolled me onto a backboard, and secured me with straps. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through my cuts, but I bit my lip and stayed quiet. I'd had worse. I'd survived worse. As they lifted me onto the stretcher, I finally got a full view of the scene. The demolished champagne tower, the blood-soaked tile, the scattered shards of crystal catching the afternoon sun like diamonds. And the guests, at least 50 of them, all staring with varying expressions of horror, pity, and morbid fascination. This was supposed to be Cassie's perfect day, her moment in the spotlight. Instead, it had become her exposure. 2 police officers had arrived with the ambulance, and I watched as they approached Cassie. One of them, a woman with her hair pulled back in a severe bun, pulled out a notepad. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about the incident." Cassie's face was a mask of barely contained panic. "It was an accident. I was just trying to help her sit down for the photo. She's my sister. I would never." I saw what happened. The voice came from an older man in a gray suit, someone I recognized vaguely as one of Greg's business associates. He stepped forward, his expression grave. I was standing less than 2 meters away. He said, his voice clear and firm, "My name is Lucas Chambers. I clearly saw her." He nodded toward Cassie. "Use both hands to grab her sister and pull hard with intent. That was not accidental or a slip of the hand. She deliberately caused this girl to fall. That is assault." The testimony of this independent witness was ironclad evidence. An unbiased observer, a respected businessman, someone with no reason to lie and every reason to stay out of family drama. His words carried the weight of truth. The female police officer's expression hardened. She stepped closer to Cassie. "Ma'am, given the witness testimony and the victim's injuries, you need to come with us to the station for questioning regarding an assault charge." "What? No!" Cassie shrieked, backing away. "You can't take me! It's my engagement party! Get away from me!" She swatted at the officer's hand, hysterical now, her entitlement overriding any sense of self-preservation. "Greg, tell them to stop." "Ma'am, stop resisting," the officer commanded. When Cassie tried to turn and run toward the house, the officers moved instantly. They grabbed her arms, spinning her around. The handcuffs clicked into place, and Cassie started to cry. Not delicate tears that could be dabbed away with a tissue, ugly, snotty sobs that made her mascara run in black rivers down her face. Her magnificent pastel dress, the one that had cost $5,000, was now stained with wine and blood and ruined beyond repair. As the police led her toward the patrol car, she kept looking back at Greg, at our parents, at anyone who might intercede. But the crowd parted for her like the Red Sea, everyone stepping back to avoid being associated with her downfall. Most importantly, Greg stood silent. He didn't defend her, didn't argue with the police, didn't proclaim her innocence or beg them to let her go. He and his family turned their backs on Cassie. That was the moment I realized my first emotional release. She was no longer untouchable. For 24 months, Cassie had been protected by the family narrative. By Mom and Dad's insistence that we keep the peace. By their willingness to sacrifice my truth for her comfort. By their enabling of her narcissism, and their enforcement of my silence. But this was public. This was witnessed. This was documented. This was finally real. As the paramedics loaded my stretcher into the ambulance, I caught one last glimpse of the botanical garden, the pastel nightmare, now splattered with blood and broken glass. The guests, shocked and whispering. My parents, huddled together, their faces pale. And Cassie, being pushed into the back of a police car, her perfect day shattered as completely as that champagne tower. "Doctor!" Kingsley climbed into the ambulance with me, still in her blood-stained cream pantsuit. "I'm coming with you," she said, in a tone that brooked no argument. "We're going to make sure you're okay, and then we're going to make sure justice is served." The ambulance doors closed, and we pulled away to the sound of sirens. I closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. She was no longer untouchable. 2 days after the engagement party, I lay in a private recovery room at Charleston County General, a concussion protocol band around my wrist, and approximately 30 stitches holding my skin together. The imaging had come back clean, no new spinal damage, thank God. Just the soft tissue injuries and the head trauma. Doctor. Kingsley had pulled strings to get me the private room, refusing to let me be placed in a shared ward where reporters might find me. Because yes, there were reporters. Society bride assaults, disabled sister at engagement party had made the local news. Someone had filmed the whole thing on their phone, and while the video was shaky and cut off right before I hit the champagne tower, it clearly showed Cassie grabbing me and pulling. The news stations had blurred my face but not Cassie's. Her breakdown, her arrest, her ruined dress, all of it captured in high definition, and shared thousands of times. The story had everything: wealth, family drama, a disabled victim, and a villain in an expensive dress. The internet was having a field day. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. Something. Instead, I mostly felt tired. The hospital room door opened, and I expected a nurse. Instead, Greg walked in, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, and he had the kind of haunted expression that came from having your entire worldview shattered. "Matilda," he said, his voice hoarse. "I am so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know." I believed him. Greg was many things, but he wasn't a good liar. If he'd known the truth about Cassie, about the accident, about any of it, it would have shown on his face every time he looked at me. "She told me you were drunk," he continued, pulling a chair close to the bed. "That you crashed the car into a tree going too fast, that you were lucky to survive, that she'd tried to stop you from driving but you wouldn't listen," she said. His voice cracked. "She said you blamed her to avoid taking responsibility." The revised history, the sanitized version. I'd heard it so many times from my parents that I almost believed it myself sometimes. "I wasn't drunk," I said quietly. "I don't drink. I never have. Ballet dancers don't." "I know that now," Greg said. "I know a lot of things now." The door opened again, and this time it was Dr. Kingsley, carrying a manila folder. She'd changed out of her ruined pantsuit and into fresh clothes, but she still looked like she was ready for battle. "Greg," she said, nodding at her nephew. "Good, you're here. Matilda, I have something to show both of you." She opened the folder and pulled out several pages. Medical records, I realized. The ones from my original surgery. 24 months ago. "Doctor," Kingsley began, her voice taking on the clinical tone of someone presenting evidence, "I performed an emergency spinal fusion surgery on Matilda Wells. She was brought in by ambulance after a single-car accident. The vehicle, a Jeep Wrangler, had hit a tree at approximately 40 miles per hour. She handed one page to Greg. "This is the toxicology report. It shows Matilda's blood alcohol level at the time of the accident." Greg read it, his eyes widening. 0.0, completely sober. The police report indicated that the driver, Cassandra Wells, had been texting while driving. She lost control on a curve. "Doctor." Kingsley's expression was carved from ice. Matilda was in the passenger seat. She never touched the wheel. "Wait," Greg said. "Cassie was driving?" "Cassie was driving," I confirmed. "She was texting her ex-boyfriend, the one before you. They were having some kind of fight about whether they were really broken up or just on a break. She kept looking at her phone instead of the road. I told her to stop, to pull over, but she said she had it under control." The memory was crystalline, preserved in perfect detail. The blue glow of the phone screen, Cassie's thumb typing furiously, my own voice saying, "Cass, please, watch the road." The sickening lurch as the wheels left the pavement, the tree getting bigger and bigger in the windshield, and then nothing but pain and sirens and the knowledge that my life as I'd known it was over. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Greg asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I tried," I said. "When I first woke up after surgery, I told my parents what happened. They said..." I stopped. swallowed hard. They said it would ruin Cassie's life if people knew she'd caused it. They said the insurance would sue her, that she might go to jail, that I needed to protect my sister. They convinced me to say I'd been driving, that I'd lost control. Jesus Christ, Greg muttered. My parents have always protected Cassie, I continued. When we were kids, it was small stuff. She'd break something, blame me, and they'd believe her. As we got older, it got worse. She'd steal money from my wallet, lie to my friends, sabotage my dance auditions by hiding my shoes or telling me the wrong time, but they always made excuses for her. She was stressed. She didn't mean it. I was being too sensitive. Dr. Kingsley closed the folder with a sharp snap. What Cassie did at that engagement party was assault. What your parents did 24 months ago was coercion and insurance fraud. The statute of limitations hasn't run out on either. Greg looked like he might be sick. I almost married her. He put his head in his hands. How did I not see it? Narcissists are excellent performers, Dr. Kingsley said, not unkindly. They show you exactly what you want to see, until it's too late. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of revelations settling over us. I could see Greg processing, reevaluating every moment of his relationship with Cassie through this new lens. Wondering what else she'd lied about, wondering who she really was beneath the performance. The door burst open, no knock, no warning. My parents rushed in like a storm surge, all flailing hands and loud voices. Matilda! Mom grabbed my hand, squeezing too hard. Oh, thank God you're okay. Dad positioned himself at the foot of the bed, his expression grave. We've been so worried. We came as soon as we heard. They hadn't visited yesterday, hadn't called to check on me. But now that Cassie needed something, here they were. We need you to do something, Mom said, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. No actual tears, I noted. Just the performance of crying. It's very important. Here it comes, I thought. Matilda, please drop the charges, Dad said. Call the police and say you slipped. Say your sister was just trying to help you up. If you don't sue, they will release your sister. There it was. The ask. The demand disguised as a plea. Mom squeezed my hand again, her grip almost painful. She's your sister, Matilda. Family protects family. You know she didn't mean it. She was just stressed about the wedding. And you know how you can be. How I can be, I repeated flatly. You know what I mean. Difficult, stubborn. You insisted on bringing that black wheelchair when she'd asked everyone to keep things light and pretty. The wheelchair I need to move, I said. Well, yes, but you could have tried harder to match the color scheme, maybe put some ribbons on it or something. And then to refuse to sit in the chair for the photo when she was just trying to include you. I pulled my hand away from Mom's grip. She assaulted me. There's video. There are witnesses. Witnesses can be mistaken, Dad said quickly. It all happened so fast. People see what they want to see. This was the moment of false defeat. I let my expression crumble, let myself look weak and overwhelmed. I shook my head wearily, feigning helplessness. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice thin and tired. This isn't about what I want anymore. The police have the video, the witnesses, the medical examiner's report. This is a criminal case between the state and Cassie. I am not the judge. I don't control what happens now. It was true, technically. Once assault charges were filed by the state, the victim couldn't just make them disappear. But my parents didn't understand the legal system well enough to know that. They thought everything could be fixed with the right words, the right pressure, the right manipulation. My parents exchanged a look, and I could see the wheels turning. They thought I was powerless, that the problem lay only with the witness and the law, not with my will. They thought they had found a loophole. We understand, Mom said, patting my arm with forced sympathy. You're tired. You've been through so much. We'll let you rest. They left without asking how I was feeling, without apologizing for what Cassie had done, without acknowledging that their golden child had publicly assaulted their other daughter at an engagement party. Greg, who had remained silent during their visit, stared at the closed door. Are they serious? He asked. They want you to lie for her? After everything? They always want me to lie for her, I said simply. Dr. Kingsley, who had also stayed quiet, now moved to the window. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Richard? Helena Kingsley. I need you to do something for me. There's a witness to an assault case, the engagement party incident you've been hearing about. Yes, that one. I need you to make sure he knows his rights and his protections. Someone might try to convince him to change his statement. She hung up and turned back to us. Richard is my attorney. He's going to make sure our witness understands what witness tampering is and how to report it if anyone tries. You think they'll try? Greg asked. I know they will, I said. They're desperate. Cassie's facing serious charges. How serious? Greg asked. Dr. Kingsley pulled up something on her phone. Assault and battery causing bodily harm to a disabled person. That's an aggravating factor. With the video evidence, the witness testimony, and Matilda's documented injuries, the prosecutor is talking about a potential 10-year sentence. Greg went pale. 10 years? She pushed a paraplegic woman into a tower of glass. Doctor? Kingsley said coldly. She could have killed her. She could have severed Matilda's spinal cord completely. 10 years is appropriate. Silence settled over the room. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of exhaustion pulling me under. The painkillers they'd given me were making everything soft and fuzzy around the edges. Rest, Dr. Kingsley said gently. I'll make sure no one bothers you tonight. I drifted off to sleep, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't dream about the accident. The next morning, I woke to hushed voices outside my door. I recognized my father's tone, aggressive, demanding, and a calmer voice responding. I couldn't make out the words, but after a few minutes, Dad's voice faded away. Greg appeared in the doorway looking grim. Your parents were here, he said. The security guard sent them away. Dr. Kingsley left instructions that only approved visitors could come in. What did they want? To talk to me, Greg said. He pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. Matilda, they asked me to do something unconscionable. I waited. They want me to convince the witness to change his story. The man who saw Cassie grab you, his name is Lucas Chambers. He's a business partner of mine. Your parents somehow found out about our connection. Greg's hands were clenched into fists. They asked me to talk to him, to suggest that maybe he'd been mistaken about what he saw. That maybe he'd been too far away to really tell. That maybe it would be better for everyone if he just said he wasn't sure anymore. And? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I told them to get the hell out of my sight. Greg said. Do they understand what they were asking me to do? That's witness tampering. That's a federal felony. I could lose my license, my career, everything. He looked at me with something like horror. I didn't realize your entire family was this rotten. Not my entire family, I said quietly. Just most of it. Greg stood up and started pacing. I've already called Lucas. Warned him that someone might try to contact him and pressure him to change his statement. He's furious. He's talking about filing harassment charges if they try. They will try, I said. They'll find a way. They always do. But even as I said it, I felt a small spark of hope, because this time, they were trapped. This time, there were too many witnesses, too much evidence, too many people who knew the truth. This time, their usual tactics wouldn't work. They had taken the bait. They had just single-handedly drowned their last hope. Greg left around noon, promising to return later with real food because hospital food is criminal. Doctor. Kingsley stopped by to check my stitches and declare me healing nicely, which in doctor speak meant I looked like I'd lost a fight with a blender but wouldn't die from it. I was alone, staring at the ceiling and contemplating the strange turns life takes, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Wells? This is Jennifer Hart from Hartwell and Associates. I'm the attorney who's been assigned to your case. My case? The assault case against your sister, Cassandra Wells. I wanted to touch base with you about the proceedings and discuss some developments. I sat up straighter, ignoring the pull of stitches. What kind of developments? Your sister's defense attorney reached out this morning. They'd like to negotiate a plea deal. My heart started pounding. What kind of plea deal? They're concerned about the strength of the prosecution's case. The video evidence is damning, the witness testimony is solid, and the aggravating factors assault on a disabled person, causing serious bodily injury, mean your sister is looking at significant prison time, if this goes to trial. How much time? The prosecutor is confident they can get 10 years, maybe more, given the public nature of the assault and the clear premeditation. 10 years. A decade of Cassie's life. She'd be 41 when she got out. Middle-aged. Her youth, her beauty, her prime years all spent in a cell. I should have felt triumphant. Vindicated. Instead, I felt complicated. What are they offering? I asked. If you agree to submit a victim impact statement requesting leniency, and if you're willing to tell the judge that you believe your sister can be rehabilitated, they're willing to plead guilty to a reduced charge, aggravated assault, instead of assault with intent to cause serious bodily harm. With your statement and a guilty plea, she'd likely serve 2 years. Maybe less with good behavior. 2 years instead of 10. Still prison, still consequences, but not life-destroying. There's a catch, miss. Hart continued. They want restitution. Full restitution for your medical expenses, pain and suffering, and punitive damages. They're proposing a total of $420,000. I nearly dropped the phone. $420,000? Your medical bills from the current hospitalization alone are close to $60,000. Add in the lost wages, the therapy you'll need, the pain and suffering from the assault itself, and punitive damages for the emotional distress. It's actually quite reasonable. Some lawyers would push for double that. But my parents, they don't have that kind of money. That's their problem, not yours, miss. Hart said calmly. If they want this plea deal, they pay. If they don't pay, we go to trial, and your sister does the full 10 years. When would they need to pay by? The preliminary hearing is scheduled for next week. They'd need to wire the full amount into our trust account before that hearing. 7 days from now. 7 days to come up with $420,000. It was impossible. My parents lived comfortably, but not lavishly. Dad was a middle manager at an insurance company. Mom worked part-time at a boutique. They had a nice house, a sailboat they took out on weekends, their retirement savings, but nearly $500,000 in cash. Miss Wells, I need to know. Are you willing to submit the leniency statement if they meet the financial terms? Was I? 2 years in prison wouldn't destroy Cassie's life completely. She'd survive it. Maybe it would even change her, force her to confront the consequences of her actions. 10 years, though, that was different. That was life-altering in ways that couldn't be undone. And the money, $420,000, would set me up for life. I could afford the medical equipment I needed, the therapy, the modifications to whatever home I ended up in. I could live independently, not have to rely on disability payments and charity. Yes, I said finally. If they pay the full restitution by the deadline, I'll submit the statement. Good, Miss Hart said. I'll let them know. 1 week, Miss Wells. The clock is ticking. My parents showed up that evening, looking haggard. Dad's face was gray, his shoulders slumped. Mom had aged 10 years in 3 days. $420,000, Dad said without preamble. That's what they're demanding. That's what the lawyer calculated, I said neutrally. We don't have that kind of money, Mom said, her voice breaking. We've been to the bank. We've called everyone we know. We can't just... You can liquidate your $401k, I said calmly. They stared at me. I checked. Between both of your retirement accounts, you have about $280,000. With the early withdrawal penalties and taxes, you'd net maybe $200,000. You can sell the sailboat not on the market, but to a wholesaler or liquidator. They'll give you cash instantly but at a fraction of the value. That's another $100,000 if you're lucky. For the rest. There are hard money lenders who fund against home equity in days, not weeks. The silence was deafening. That's our retirement, Dad finally said. That's everything we've worked for our entire lives. Selling to liquidators? Hard money loans? We'll lose 50% of the value on everything. We'll be ruined. And my spine is broken, I said, my voice hard. My career is gone. My life as I knew it is over. Because Cassie was texting while driving and you made me lie about it. Because you've protected her and enabled her and sacrificed me for her comfort my entire life. We did what we thought was best for the family, Mom whispered. You did what was easiest for Cassie, I corrected. You always have. And now you get to decide what's more important, your retirement fund or your daughter's freedom. Dad's face went red. You're really going to do this? You're really going to destroy your own family? I'm not destroying anything, I said. Cassie destroyed this family the moment she grabbed me and threw me into that glass tower. I'm just refusing to lie about it anymore. You pay the restitution. I sign the leniency statement. Cassie does 2 years instead of 10. Everyone walks away. Everyone except us, Dad spat. We'll have nothing. No retirement, no savings, no boat. You'll have your house and your jobs and your health, I said. That's more than Cassie left me with. Mom started crying real tears this time, not the performed ones. How can you be so cruel? I learned from the best, I said. They left without another word. For the next week, I watched the clock. I stayed in the hospital longer than necessary, partially because Dr. Kingsley insisted on monitoring me for complications, partially because I had nowhere else to go. My apartment was a third-floor walk-up with no elevator, and I'd been staying with my parents before the engagement party. That option was clearly off the table now. Greg visited daily, bringing food and keeping me company. He'd officially broken off the engagement, returning the ring to his mother and telling Cassie's lawyer that there would be no reconciliation. His parents had even offered to help me find an accessible apartment, a gesture that brought me to tears. Dr. Kingsley checked in regularly, updating me on Cassie's status. She was out on bail, staying with our parents, apparently having a breakdown that involved screaming and throwing things and blaming everyone but herself. On the 6th day, my lawyer called. They're doing it, Miss Hart said. Your father liquidated both 401 KS this morning. Took a massive hit on the penalties. They also drove the sailboat to a marine salvage dealer. They practically gave it away for immediate cash fire sale price. And they signed papers with a high-interest lender this afternoon for the gap funds. Will they make it? If the wire's clear? Barely. It'll be close. On the 7th day, the day of the deadline, I sat in the hospital room with my phone in my lap, watching the clock. The deadline was 5 p.m. At 4:47 p.m., my lawyer called. The wire just cleared, she said. $420,000, paid in full. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I'll draft your victim impact statement tonight. You'll need to sign it tomorrow, and we'll submit it to the judge. The plea hearing is scheduled for Friday. Okay, I said. Miss Wells Matilda, this is the right thing. You're giving her a chance to make things right. That's more than most people would do. After she hung up, I sat in the silence of the hospital room and thought about the cost of family. My parents had paid $420,000 to save Cassie from a decade in prison. They'd lost their retirement, their sailboat, their financial security. They'd taken on predatory debt they'd spend years paying off. All for Cassie. They'd never once offered to help me with medical bills, never offered to pay for the wheelchair that had taken me 2 years to save for. Never offered anything but demands that I be smaller, quieter, more convenient. The money hit my lawyer's trust account, and I signed the plea for leniency. 2 days later, Cassie stood before a judge and pleaded guilty to aggravated assault. She was sentenced to 2 years in a state correctional facility, with the possibility of parole after 18 months with good behavior. My victim impact statement was read aloud in court. I wrote about the pain, the betrayal, the lifetime of being erased and diminished. But I also wrote that I believed in the possibility of change, that I hoped my sister would use this time to reflect and grow, that I wanted justice but not vengeance. I didn't attend the hearing. I watched from my hospital room via video link. I saw Cassie's face when the sentence was handed down: shock, disbelief, and finally, for the first time I could remember, something that might have been genuine remorse. My parents sat behind her, holding hands, their faces masks of grief. Greg sat in the back of the courtroom. When it was over, he looked directly at the camera and nodded once. A goodbye. A thank you. An acknowledgement that some things, once broken, cannot be repaired. The money was transferred from the trust account to my personal account, $420,000. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I used some of it to pay off my medical debts, some to secure a beautiful, accessible apartment in a building with an elevator and wide doorways, some to set up a trust fund for future medical needs. And then I did something I'd never thought I'd have the courage to do. I cut off all contact with my parents. I blocked their numbers. Returned their letters unopened. When they showed up at my new apartment, I didn't answer the door. They'd made their choice. They'd always made their choice. Now I was making mine. I took that money, and I started a new life. 18 months have passed since the courtroom gavel fell, and today, I'm sitting on a sun-drenched beach in the south of France. For the first time in 42 months, I don't feel like I'm drowning. The Mediterranean stretches out before me, impossibly blue, the kind of color that doesn't exist in Charleston. The sand is warm beneath my left hand where I've braced myself against the wheelchair. My matte black carbon chair, the same one Cassie tried to hide under that goddamn tablecloth, sits proudly in the sunlight now. I'm not hiding anymore. The $420,000 restitution money changed everything. Not because money fixes paralysis, it doesn't, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something, but because it bought me choices. Real choices. Not the scraps my family used to offer me with their pitying smiles and their, maybe next year, Matilda, promises. I used a significant portion of it to fund experimental treatment at the Zurich Neuroscience Research Institute, cutting-edge neural chip implant technology. The kind of thing that makes neurologists either excited or skeptical, with very little middle ground. Dr. Kingsley, bless her pragmatic heart, had given me the contact information with a simple, "It's worth trying. No guarantees, but the research is promising." The medical result wasn't some miraculous stand-up-and-walk moment like you see in the movies. Recovery never works that way, no matter what the Hallmark Channel tells you. But 3 weeks ago, during one of my focused visualization exercises, something happened. My right big toe twitched, just slightly, barely a millimeter of movement. But I felt it, a tingling current of electricity that ran down my calf, following neural pathways that had been dark and silent for 42 agonizing months. The first real sensation, below my T10 injury since the Jeep rolled. I had stared at my foot for a full minute, convinced I'd imagined it. Then I did it again, and again. Each time, that tiny twitch, that whisper of reconnection between my brain and my body. "Matilda, did you see that?" Mari, the 35-year-old woman sitting in the beach chair next to me, had been watching during one of my exercises yesterday. When my toe moved, she screamed in delight, launching herself out of her seat to grab my shoulders. She hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe, crying even louder than I was. Mari, my found family. I met her at the Research Institute in Switzerland. She'd been volunteering there, helping patients navigate the foreign medical system, translating German medical jargon into understandable English, and generally being the kind of human that restores your faith in humanity. She told me she'd cared for her paralyzed sister for 10 years before she passed away from complications. When she met me, Mari said I reminded her of her sister. Same stubborn determination, same dark humor about our circumstances, same refusal to be defined by our limitations. For me, Mari filled a void I didn't even know how desperately I needed filled. She became the caring, understanding, protective sister I never had, the sister Cassie could never be. My phone vibrates in the bag hanging off my wheelchair. I almost ignore it. I've gotten good at ignoring things that don't serve me, but something makes me check. An email from Mom. The subject line is empty, but there's an attachment. A photo of a handwritten letter. My stomach tightens as I open it. The handwriting is Cassie's, still that perfect Catholic school cursive, even after 2 years in prison. She was released early last week for good behavior. According to Mom's brief message, Cassie refused to move back in with our parents. Instead, she found a small town somewhere in the Midwest, got a job as a server at a bakery, and rents a tiny apartment above a hardware store. The letter itself is short. "Matilda, I'm sorry for taking your legs and your life's dream. I don't expect you to forgive me. The days in prison helped me understand how terrible I was. I am learning to be a decent human being from zero. Live well, Matilda." I read it twice, then a third time. My heart feels light. Not because of the apology words are cheap, and Cassie's words were always prettiest when they meant the least, but because I realize, sitting here with the sun on my face and Mari humming beside me, that I don't care anymore. No more resentment burning in my chest. No more imagining what I'd say to her if I saw her again. No more rage keeping me awake at night, but also no need to reconnect. No obligation to rebuild something that was never really there. Cassie is learning to be a decent human being? Good for her. She can do that without me. I turn off my phone and drop it into my bag, leaving the past exactly where it belongs. "Mari," I say, beaming at her. "Let's go get ice cream. My treat." Mari laughs, this full-bodied, joyful sound that makes strangers turn and smile. She stands, moving behind my wheelchair. Let's go, little sister. She pushes me along the coastal path, and our laughter blends with the sound of the ocean waves. The breeze tastes like salt and freedom. This is my real family. This is my real life. And damn, it feels good.